Joshua, it's great to have you on the show. Super excited to get to know more about you and, of course, about your band, Mawcore. So welcome to the show, dude.
Hey, it's good to be here, Paul. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm going to get the most basic question of the entire interview out of the way, and I can guarantee you'll get sick of this one eventually if you're not already. But tell me about the name Mawcore, because I have been just desperate to know ever since I first started playing you guys on the show.
I never get sick of that because it's actually a pretty cool find on our part. We were looking around in Hebrew and Greek just for some fun words. We thought, we needed a band name because we had an old band that was falling apart, so we decided to move in a different direction. Mm-hmm. And we came across this word Mawcore, and we knew we were saying it wrong. We still say it wrong, but we just go with Mawcore because it just seems simple. But It actually means wellspring in Hebrew. And when we dug into the passages surrounding that, we were kind of blown away because the wellspring is the originating source of. And so, it's always with us. And we're like, that's pretty awesome to know that anytime we need refreshment, anytime we need rest, anytime we need whatever we need from the source, which is God, there it is. It's always there. So the wellspring is pretty powerful. So we love the word Mawcore.
Nice. Fantastic. Now, because I do what I do for a living and pronunciation kind of matters to me on some level, what is the correct pronunciation of that word?
There's a Hebrew teacher that we've been in touch with, and we don't even know how to say it right still. It's like Mawcore, something like that. Yeah, you have to have that in it, and I don't know how to do it right.
That's pretty great. Now, here's a funny little aside for you, talking about having a Hebrew teacher trying to get you guys to say it correctly. Perhaps one of the churches that we went to when we lived in the Northwest had one of the elders there was, I think he was Korean. But he learned Hebrew at a Bible college in Texas, and then when he went to do graduate school somewhere else, and he was in an advanced Hebrew class there, and the guy told him, he goes, "You know what? Your Hebrew has a Texas accent." Because he learned it from a guy from Texas. It made sense, but still, it's kind of funny. You got this native Korean guy speaking Hebrew in a Texas accent. It's got all those layers in there.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
So now you'd kind of alluded to the fact that there was another project that kind of fed into this one on some level, but just give us some backstory. You don't necessarily have to go into the previous band if you don't want to, but give us some backstory on Mawcore and kind of how you guys came to be where you're at now. The
backstory is, the other band, three of us remained out of the other band, Blushing Well, which actually at the time we had gotten to some pretty high levels for a band during that time, which was pretty cool. We were playing with, Skillet as they were on the rise, and we pretty much played with every single band that existed at that time.
Yeah.
And we've been offered some record label deals that we turned down because, they're not always the best thing.
Yeah.
But I personally had gone through some spiritual battles, and I had personally been dealing with some stuff, and it just was no longer working. A couple members had left, and the band just didn't feel right anymore. So we just stopped. We actually gave up music altogether. We're just not going to do any music anymore. But that was short-lived because musicians, they just kid themselves when they say they're not going to play anymore.
Yeah.
And so we started working on new material. Because of all the brokenness that we had, we needed to work through material, and that's where all the songs that are on our full-length Mudman came from, just out of brokenness, needing healing, desperately needing healing. And it was just it's sort of just an opportunity to get kick-started and move into the direction we really wanted to go.
You'd mentioned the fact that all these songs off this full-length record, which hasn't been out for too horribly long, kind of came out of that struggle. What do you feel like of those struggles and the songs that contain those struggles? What do you think has connected with your fans the most?
I think we have found we connect with a lot of unchurched, unsaved individuals because the world has been full of so much darkness right now, and so it has those dark elements, but yet there's a whole theme of hope throughout, which is the general theme for most Christian albums. You don't find too many Christian albums without that theme. But I think just because of the struggle that I had gone through and where the lyrics were coming from, it's a more raw emotion, and it kind of connects with people who are in that momentary anger or momentary detest for all things church, which is sad because we are the church, but they associate the church as a religious organization that has been, domineering in their lives, and sadly, as a whole, the religion probably has come across as kind of judgmental, but God is not that way, and so we try to connect in a way that we can help them see that God is a completely different person.
Yeah, that is difficult because, I mean, it's funny because I've been having this conversation quite a bit lately. Of course, it has kind of been refueled by the guy who was in Hillsong kind of leaving the faith and leaving the church and all that. But I'm honestly somewhat surprised that more of that isn't happening than it is, because it feels like it's just such a difficult place to put people, because you have these kids who are, starting a band at anywhere from like 16 to 20. And then all of a sudden they're in some level of spotlight. And not only is it just like, oh, I got to be cool, I got to sound good, I got to write well, I got to do all of these check boxes that the average like person who plays in a band wants to check, but you also have to be like without any sort of reproach at all on a spiritual level, while simultaneously having sound doctrine either in your speech from stage or in your lyrics. And that is such a heaping ton of pressure for anybody. And it always feels like, to me, the type of person, and forgive if you fall into this category, either you or audience, either one, forgive me in advance, but it feels like the artistic personalities that would be the type to do that are probably, like, statistically the least apt to handle well that sort of criticism. And that's just so hard. And you got to think, it's like all of a sudden you got all these other kids who think that you're really cool and they're like putting you in the same plane as like their pastor. And then, I mean, and then you start dealing with, the bad stuff that you always hear come out about, like, well, like Christian promoters always on the up and up about paying. You have, plugs get pulled during the middle of a concert at a church because of one thing that was or wasn't said that may not have even been that big of a deal to anybody listening, but somebody took offense to it some way. And that's just so much to bear. It just surprises me that we don't hear more of this, honestly.
Right. It's a good possibility that it does. I mean, we know it happens a lot more. Yeah. I think that John Cooper did hit the nail on the head, that if that's your struggle and you are in a role of leadership, you should probably struggle with that silently with a group of people, because when you come out with that publicly, no one's going to trust you anyways, regardless. So they're like, for all these years, like John had said in his article that has gotten a lot of publicity, for all these years, you're saying you believed in one thing, and now all of a sudden that's worthless. So, and you want people to follow you, you need to go back and just struggle quietly and work it through. And I think there's a lot of leaders that probably do struggle quietly and just kind of either fade away or come back refreshed. And, C.S. Lewis did the same thing. C.S. Lewis struggled with what was going on in the church that day, and he struggled quietly and then spoke of it afterwards, that type of thing. So.
Yeah. It's just so rife with all sorts of problems. And of course, like you were saying earlier, it's like we are the church. The church isn't just like a specific building with that specific, 50 to 1,000 people in it. What most people of us think of when we think about church, like we think of like what our last church was that we went to and our personal experience with probably a fairly small percentage of the people in that building. And that is like what we reflect onto the entire Christendom over. And that's just, that's understandable, but at the same time, that it's on some level, it's not really fair, but it does kind of put the pressure on the rest of us to be like, hey, look, if you're the point of contact for somebody at a church, you need to be that person who makes them feel welcome, at least on some level, and lets them know that they're accepted. And it doesn't mean they need to stay where they're at, but at the same time, they need to be welcome to have that time to be able to change and not just be expected to like, well, you're in here now. Now it's our rules.
Right. And we've always used the word wrong too.
Yeah.
Where do you go to church at? Well, I don't go to church. I go to a building and I meet up with the rest of the church. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Completely understand. I would rather. Obviously, I'm sensitive, and my son is a we call him the swear word protector. Like anytime someone's swearing, he's like going, "Oh my goodness, I can't." He's like, he's 9 years old, 9 years old, and very sensitive to everything. Which we're very blessed that he's that sensitive, and we hope that he continues that way. But in the same sense, we try to teach him. You're like, you got to let people be real, buddy.
Yeah.
And you got to love them anyways, because that's their struggle. They're going through whatever they're going through, and for whatever reason, they're hurting right now. We've got to love them anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally understand. It's funny, back in the day when I was a kid, like the first thing that I ever went to, because I was like a homeschool kid. My much older brothers were not. But one year, our church would always have these basketball clinics where like they would have some of like the high school and college kids who played basketball either on the team or just were really knowledgeable with some of the other adults would help just kind of teach the kids, mostly like young elementary to like junior high, just kind of some basic skills, fundamental stuff. And there was this one kid who was there who I didn't know before it, but he was just obsessed with talking about kicking butt. And I was like, I'm not allowed to say that. I can't believe that kid would say that. And it genuinely bothered me. So I totally understand where your son's coming from, because at that point in time, I'm like, oh my goodness, like he keeps on saying this and no one's telling him to stop.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even allowed to say the word fart when I was a kid.
Me neither. I understand. I still like if I say it in front of my mom, I still feel weirdly guilty. It's kind of funny.
We got to the point where we would just say it just to drive my mom crazy.
Right.
She's like, that's not what I taught you to say. We're like, but we're just gonna say it anyway. Oh well, my poor mother. She was tortured by 5 children. So.
And how many boys out of those 5?
4.
Yeah. Your poor sister.
Oh, she could dish it out too.
Okay, good. It's amazing how that happens. I had a friend of mine growing up. They were homeschooled too, but there was 9 boys and 1 girl, and she also learned how to hold her own very quickly.
Oh yeah, she had to.
Very cool, man. Well, we've gotten this far into it, and we haven't even really talked about the lead single, which is what most people who listen to the show will probably know you for, and that song is called Bottom Feed. Now, I always want to say Bottom Feeder, so you're going to have to clue me in on how this came to be. Like, man, you guys have a weird band name, and then you like have these song titles that just feel somehow wrong, so I don't know. You got a lot of explaining to do, dude.
I understand. I honestly have had so many people just call Bottom Feeder, and you're like, just let it go.
Yeah,
whatever. Because I think there is another song out there called Bottom Feeder, and we put our video up on YouTube. But when this song was originally released, we did a video for it and put it up on YouTube, and there was Bottom Feeder. So we kind of were fortunate because I think that one was getting like 1 million hits. So we were good.
Hey, why not?
So that might have helped play into some things there. But Bottom Feed was it was a poem that was written about me. I think it was my dad was writing poetry, and he shared this poem with me, and I just connected to it because it was at the right time that he shared it to me. I had already wrote all these other songs dealing with the struggle, and we'd come to the end of a list of songs, and one was called Mudman, which became the title track. Mudman was a man who was actually getting to heal. Yeah. But then we were like, okay, we got another phase of this journey, and then he's like, well, what about this? And I read it, and it was the right phase of the journey because it pointed to the next direction we wanted to go musically, and that was more anthematic, where we could raise our hands up and say, we've been pushed to the bottom. We've been told that this is where we get to feed. Right. This is where we get to stay because of the mistakes we were made, but that's not what Christ has told us. God has promised us a new life in Him, and that can happen at any minute of every single day. And so we are able to raise our hands in, confidence, knowing that no matter what is told to us from the world's perspective, whether it's through hate or whether just through misunderstanding. Some people they were raised a certain way, and they only know that way, and they think, well, you don't fit this mold, so you've got to be out of God's will. And that's the farthest from the truth from our perspective, because God's will is actually in His love, and we are always in His love when we are in His family, and so we can confidently raise our hands up and say, I'm not the one that you think I am. I've been redeemed. You can't kill a man who's alive within. So that's a line from the song. So
wow, nice. And how strange that like that would be the one that would really kind of get you guys propelled into being like on the charts and getting national airplay and all that good stuff too. It's amazing how those kind of oddity of songs can end up being that song for a band.
I think it just has the right thing, and we connected with the right person to help fix it too. Like I said, it had been released in 2015, and at that time we were happy with it. We had a really good mixer mastering guy work on it and really clean it up and make it sound good. But it just never really connected the way we wanted to. So we got into conversation with Justin Forshaw of As We Ascend, and just talked it over with him. And he says, "Well, send me that track and another one, and let's work on it and see what we can do." And he just helped clean it up even more, make it a little bit more, I guess, now.
There you go. And it's funny because I don't know if you guys are made privy to this, but back in a previous interview that I did with Justin a while back, I remember him name dropping you guys as something he was excited about people getting to hear. Because anytime I have like somebody on the show who's like a producer, I usually try to like pick their brains. I'm like, so what you working on that you're excited about? And he name dropped you guys. So I think that's very prolific that ended up being the direction that this ended up going, because now you guys have a top 10 single, and he had a hand in that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, he's a little excited about that. He had worked completely on this one with us, because he's like, can I produce it?
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, if you want to, that's fine. He goes, okay, because I hear some ideas, and I would like to, if he would give me the freedom, I would like to do something with it. And so we let him. And at that time, he was also working on just mixing Bayless's song.
Yeah.
And so he had Bayless and us that he's working on, and Bayless put theirs out a lot sooner.
Right.
And he was all pumped about that, and then ours kind of climbs, and he's getting excited too. So it's always, it's really exciting for us. I guess people who see it all the time, it's not as exciting, but
right. Hey, man, that's something that I think is kind of cool, and anything can happen in the future. There's nothing certain, but one thing that I will say that is always fun, and this may be kind of like a vain thing to think about, but I always think that it's kind of cool to be able to think, like, in your position, you can always think, like, no matter what else happens with the band, we've had a top 10 national single, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, it's extremely cool. I don't even know how other way to say it without sounding a little bit arrogant.
Right. It's like, no, it's nothing. I don't know. See, to me, I think it sounds arrogant to say that, to try to brush something like that off, as opposed to being like, yeah, this is kind of new for us. This is cool. So I think that's cool. Embrace it, man. Enjoy it for sure. So now, what was working with him in the studio on the rest of the record like? After having just have him kind of spruce up a track, what was it like being in the studio and just kind of getting a chance to get his input into all this?
Well, we haven't even gotten to that point. We just did 2 songs.
Oh, you guys aren't there yet? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're in the middle of the next batch of songs, and he's waiting for us to pull him into it.
Oh, okay, okay.
So yeah, we gave him Bottom Feed, and we gave him another one that isn't ready for release yet.
Okay,
and that'll be. We were hoping it would be now, but it's a little bit still. Yeah. And then we have a whole batch of about. Well, I don't even know. We just keep writing, so we have all these songs, and when we have them demoed and ready for him to listen to, then because he's so busy, which is good for him, but there's no sense in wasting his ears on stuff that we're just thinking about. Yeah,
for sure. I get that. Well, now the other song, we've already just kind of name dropped the other song that we're going to play during the show, which is the title track off of your current full-length record, Mudman. Tell us about that song.
That one, as I said a little bit earlier there, it was going to be the last song on the album. It was originally going to be the last one, because I'd gotten through all these other songs lyrically, and this one was just started coming out of me lyrically. And I had that concept in mind a long time ago, but never actually developed lyrically. And it's just, I was thinking, when people break, we cry, and God, made man out of dust and breathed life into him. And I was like, I just had this concept of this man crying, and as he was crying, the tears were washing down his skin, and his skin being made of dust were collecting the dust and collect on the ground a puddle of mud. and God reaching down into that puddle of mud and grabbing what was there and molding a new man out of it. So Mudman is just this opportunity. I felt like for my life, what had happened, I couldn't be rebuilt. I had to be remade completely. There was so much that had gone wrong that I was that home that was so crumbled that it wasn't even for me. We bought it for the land is what God did. He bought it for the land and he put a new man on it. So Mudman was a brand new man situation.
Okay, cool. Well, fantastic. I'm glad people are going to get a chance to hear that song during the show, and I hope that people enjoy that one as well. So aside from just the fact that you guys are currently writing, I noticed that you guys were going to be playing a rather different kind of venue than the average band, I would say, gets an opportunity to play. You know what I'm talking about already.
Yeah, the venue that I won't fit into because I am the only one in the band without a beard.
Well, they may convert you, man.
I tried growing. I had skin cancer on my face, and so I had to grow a beard for a little while.
Yeah,
and that was the worst experience I ever had in my life.
Oh no! Maybe it was just the context. I mean, maybe you need to do it apart from the whole cancer thing. I mean, let's face it. I mean, you do anything because of cancer, it's going to kind of taint it on some level. I mean, it just doesn't do well.
Now I'm scared to grow a beard out because there's gray in it.
Well, dude, I got gray in mine. If that makes you feel any better.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got lots of friends that have gray in theirs. I'm not ready for it. I don't want to embrace it yet. My wife keeps looking for grays in my hair just to remind me that I'm getting old.
Yeah, it isn't bad enough when people post those wonderful things on Facebook. They're like, this album from when you were in junior high turns 30 this year. And you're like, no!
Right.
It's like, shut your mouth.
And my hair is a weird color. And so people will know when I've gone gray because they'll be like, dude, they're already asking because my hair actually got darker. It was a bright red at one time in my life.
Okay.
And they're already going like, are you coloring your hair? I'm like, not yet, but you'll know it. You'll know it.
I understand, my friend. I understand. So now, for people who haven't caught on to this yet, this is like a men's beard festival competition kind of a thing.
Yes, and it's pretty crazy.
Now, are you is this typical for bands to perform at these things? I mean, I've seen some documentaries or it's some sort of reality show that was following a couple of people who are really big in the bearding world, which is kind of funny that that's a thing.
Uh-huh.
But they never did show any performers at these things, or at least not that I remember. But is this typical, do you think?
I don't think so.
Cool. Well, hey, that makes it even better, man.
Yeah. They actually tried to get us to play last year, and we were going through drummer changes, so it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But they really wanted us to play, and so he's like, well, let's make it happen next year. I'm like, are you sure? Because I don't have a beard. He goes, I don't care.
Dude, you need to just get a Santa beard and wear it just for kicks.
I was thinking getting one of those, the one, what do they call them? They're like face warmer beards.
Oh, yes, the knitted ones.
Yeah.
Do it.
Just put one of those on, because then people will think I just have a cold beard.
My beard's cold. Leave me alone. That's
yeah, but it's a pretty cool event though, because they're raising. We gravitate towards charities and stuff because we actually are doing our own. We feel passionate about our own charity, but they're raising money for I think it's fallen soldiers' families and stuff like that.
Okay, which
is really cool. And so we wanted to be a part of it to just to help out. And we not saying that we want to always play charities because sometimes that's really expensive on our part, but
right.
But we do feel a calling to help however we can, because in the world of music we don't have money to give, so we have ourselves to give.
Yeah, for sure. And dude, I mean, that means a lot. I think that there's a lot of bands who I'm sure do other good things that may pass on that sort of thing. And that's fine. But at the same time, I think it's great that people are willing to give of their time and of themselves to be able to help out something that is a little bit bigger where you might not otherwise. And you might get, potentially passing up on a paying gig to be able to do that. So that's always good.
Yeah, and you never know what it's going to do. Like if it's going, like for this event specifically, it's not overtly Christian in any way, but the money goes to a family that's struggling who may have not made it on their own, and there could be children in that family, and those children, because of that kickstart in their life, they grow up to be leaders in their community and leaders in their country, and they can share the message of Christ. So that's always how we look at it. You don't. It's just that one person. I mean, I can't even imagine that the person even knew that they led Billy Graham to the Lord. But that person that did that, wow. I mean, seriously, you never know, because it's all about the next generation. Because our fame, popularity, whatever you want to call it, is so short-lived that if we aren't pouring into the next generation, then we're missing the point as why God's given us this gift.
For sure, man. For sure. That's awesome. Cool deal, dude. Well, I hope that goes well in whatever your beard status at the point of the show. I hope that's comfortable and not awkward.
The rest of the band's growing their beards for me. So.
Oh, okay. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Cool. Well, dude, is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't touched on that you want people to know about, or anything else that you're looking forward to that you want to share?
Oh, we have no idea what we're looking forward to. We're looking forward to each day. I mean, it's been a really cool journey so far. It's been a slow year in the way of concerts for us, but that's because we really didn't know. We wanted to be in the studio at this time, and then that didn't work out, and then we wanted to be in the studio. It's just kind of been this progression of things, and we were working through drummer things, and we finally have a drummer who really loves playing music. We had one that did before, but it took a couple to get through, and so now we're really digging into the songs we have, and so we hope to be in the studio very shortly to be able to do that. We have to continue to save our pennies, but we definitely are hoping to get in there. Our goal is to do it a little bit differently when the songs are finally ready. I don't believe that we're going to just throw a full album out there in the world. I think we're going to do something different, and there's just been watching how the trend is going, and I think that full albums are for the bands that are very well established, like Skillet and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I think that the rest of us who don't have that establishment have to do things a little bit differently.
Sure. And I think that's fine. And I also think that it's kind of nice that like either releasing EPs or even just singles kind of plays into the economical side of it. But it also is nice that it is on trend, because otherwise it kind of like 10 years ago, it's like if you release an EP, everyone's like, so is the label not sure about you? Do you not have enough money? Can you not write 10 good songs? I mean, there was that weird assumption that went with it. I mean, it was like somebody walking in with their new girlfriend and you didn't know they had broken up before. It was that level of awkwardness.
Right.
It was that kind of thing. But nowadays it's like, oh, cool, you released a single. Fantastic. Cool. I'll be happy to see when the next one comes out. And like no one thinks about it, because you'll have bands that may sell a platinum record and they may just drop a one-off single and it's fine. So,
Right. And you could have that single go for almost 3 months and people still going, when are you putting a video out for it?
Right. Yep.
No one asks when the next song is. They just say, when's the next video coming out?
Right.
So, the next step is to release the next single that we worked with Justin on, and hopefully that'll be very soon, much sooner than the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
So,
sounds good. Yeah. Sounds good. I'll look forward to it. Well, dude, I'm going to wrap this up real quick with the last question that I always ask in an interview, which I think is usually the most telling of any question, because it's just fun and it's not like any of the others. But despite the fact that you're getting to play a beard festival, you're in a hard rock band, you get to sing, you get to scream, you get to do all that fun stuff, what is the most un-rock and roll thing about you?
Everything else.
Okay,
I'm currently a plant-based, almost vegan, so that's not rock and roll at all. Rock and roll is all about eating steaks, right?
Sure.
So I don't.
Or at the very least, Taco Bell.
Yeah. I'm like we just played with Disciple Friday night, and God bless those people for being so generous. He's been watching my wife's post on Facebook, and he noticed that she was talking about plant-based, and he's like, "Oh no, I knew he didn't eat meat, but I didn't realize that it was this intense."
Right.
And so he panicked and put together a whole vegetable area for me.
Oh wow!
And I'm like, dude, you didn't have to do that. That's pretty awesome, though.
Yeah, Kevin's a very thoughtful guy. I will say that about him. He always seems to be kind of trying to put other people's needs out ahead of everything else, and he's been very generous with his time and with everything with this show. And man, it's just fun to watch him. Even just hang out backstage, you get a really good sense of who he is, and that's always, I think, a positive thing when you can see people off stage, acting in a way that you see as being true to not only who they are on stage, but how you would hope that they would be just as a personality.
We go way back with Kevin. He actually was brought into our area through a place called Mars Hill, and it seemed like Spoken and Disciple became the Mars Hill band, and they would just stay here for a week and just play in our town.
Wow!
Because that was when they were like 16, and so they had nothing else better to do, and if they didn't have any shows, Mars Hill would just put them up and they just play every night until they got a show booked somewhere else.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so we go pretty far back with Kevin. It was back when we were all kids.
Nice. Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, sweet deal, dude. Well, I appreciate all your time and all this. It's been a pleasure to get to know you. I never know what to expect with bands I've never interviewed before, but I'm thoroughly pleased to have gotten to meet you today, and can't wait to hear the next single.
Definitely appreciate talking to you. You never know what to expect when you talk to people over email.
This is true. This is true. Nothing like just going out of the gate like, so who did you vote for and why? Yeah, that isn't this show at all.
Right. I appreciate the voting thing. I appreciate that type of stuff, but I do just I'm like, oh, people vote, cool.
Yeah. Right. Well, to me, my thought has always been like, one, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, one, it's nobody else's business, and two, why would I want to give a huge chunk of my audience a reason to dislike me?
Right.
It's like, it's not going to enrich their lives to need to know who I voted for. So I'm just going to keep it to myself and go on and try to do the best I can. And that's all one can do.
Exactly. Yeah. These days, it's just better to kind of crawl into the poll, make your vote, and crawl back out.
Right. Did you vote? Maybe.
People look at you and they're like, I bet he's voting for the other guy. You're like, I am. I'm voting for the other guy. There's a couple people, so it's one of the other guys.
It's somebody's other guy. I don't know if it's yours or not. That's okay. There you go, man. Well, cool deal, dude.